Hi folks, me again. Something different this time. What are the top 10 electrical tools that you need if you live aboard your boat? In this video we're going to show you the top 10 tools that we use to maintain our boat and some of the equipment that we use along with those tools. Now we've done a Boat Electrical Made Easy series. I'll put a link up here somewhere to a whole series of boat electrical videos, starting with the very basics. But just as a single video, what are the top 10 things that we would recommend you have on your boat so that you can maintain your boat and keep it seaworthy and working? So here's number 10 for us, and that is a quality soldering iron. I've covered up the make of this one because they don't sponsor us and we're not going to sponsor them, but this is a good thermostatically controlled soldering iron. It's 60 watts. It has a natty little holder so that when it's hot you can put it in there and it won't burn anything. This one has a European plug, and it does actually have some soldering spare tip kept in there, and it's reasonably controllable. Within plus or minus 5 degrees, I reckon the accuracy is quite good. There's a small sponge that you can damp down here for wiping the excess solder off the end of your iron, and it's okay inside the boat or in sheltered areas. What you do need is, if you're going to be working outside the boat, is you need something with a bit more guts. Now this is a 100 watt soldering iron. Again, it's a European model. This has got a nice big wide copper tip, and quite a powerful one. This gets really quite hot, and the reason that you need that extra wattage is if you're trying to penetrate something with a big lug or a big terminal on, you need to have the wattage in order to heat up the area. So number 10, a good quality soldering iron. Here we are, number 9, heat shrink. Now this is our heat shrink box, and it goes from the tiniest of tiny heat shrink. It's in the palm of my hand there. Very tiny stuff. I would guess that's less than 1mm in diameter, 1/16 of an inch or less, in all the colours, and then going up to a 3mm, and then 4 and 6 and 8, and then we go up to 10s, 12s in there, 14, and then there's some 16 there. Now they all shrink down. That's only the size that they are when they are unshrunk. And then we have some longer pieces here. This is high shrink rate stuff. This is from a different supplier, and some longer bits there, and of course some really long bits of red left over from a job that I did. Now to go with that, obviously you need to be able to shrink this down, and a hot air gun. But I do keep one of these, it's not working, one of these, there we go, windproof lighters in there. Not the ideal thing, but if your soldering iron isn't hot, because you can use the wand of your soldering iron to heat shrink, close heat shrink up, or preferably a heat gun, then one of these little windproof lighters has got a really controllable flame on it. So number 9, a decent box of heat shrink, and you can get these off of eBay or Amazon or whatever the buying service in your country is. Yeah, make sure you've got one of those on board. Very, very useful to have. Top tip, if you're cutting a rope and you're cutting your rope with a hot knife, put a piece of heat shrink over the end of the rope, before you cut it, and then close the heat shrink up with a lighter or a hot air gun, and that will hold the end of the rope rather than you having to do a back splice or whip the ends. Heat shrink works really well on the ends of multi-plat and multi-cord rope. Definitely a good idea. Well, here we are, number 8 already. So connectors and terminals. I guess that's the best way to describe them. Here's what we keep on our boat. So I'll start with the first box. This is the bigger stuff. In here we keep a few odd switches, double pole, single pole, different shapes, just in case we get something that we want to switch on and off. Always handy. These are glands, waterproof glands, to go into boxes. That's for our radio, and we have a couple of these multiple switches, multiple plugs on board. I've got some of these in another box which are all wrapped up, and this one is what, a 3, 6, 9 pin, I think it is. But we've got others that are 5s and 2s and what have you. These are really handy if you're connecting up something with multiple cables. And they do make a waterproof version of this. We've got a waterproof version of this on our temporary solar that we can hang out over the side. So they're quite useful. So these, you'll know what these are. These are ferrules. And again, down from very small to quite big. I've just actually topped this pot up after we redid our solar. So I was able to buy these in little bags on Trendyol, which is the Turkish equivalent of eBay, I guess it is. A really good price in individual bags, and top that up. So the next one, pretty similar. Again, we've got some ferrules. These are a slightly different type of ferrule. These are flat ferrules, and these are ones I prefer in some connectors. Because you get a better, because they're flat, you get a better connection on a flat type of connector. If you were using, say, a round one, a round connector like these, I don't really like chop blocks, but if you see that these are round, then you'd want to use these round ferrules in here, and if it's a flat one, you want to use a flat connector. So we've got those in 2 or 3 different sizes. As I said, there's some chop blocks there, and we've got some more bigger ones in another box. And here we've got some grommets, either for holes in boxes or for blanking holes. Then we've got our regular crimps. So this is our small crimp box. We've got mainly small crimps in here, up to, I think they're 8mm. What are they? They're 16 by 10mm they are. So there's a they'll take a 16mm cable. Is that right? Yep, they'll take a 16mm cable. So these are 16mm by 10. They'll take a 16mm cable, and they have a 10mm clearance eye on the end. So that's what that little number stamped on them is. I think there's a couple of big ones in there. Yeah, there's a 70 by 12. And the big ones have all gone to the bottom of the box, but you can you can see there's another one there. What's that? That's a 70 by 10. So we keep a few big ones in there at the bottom, but mainly this is the smaller ones. Some of these type connectors that you can splice into another wire, I really don't like these on a boat, because they open up all the insulation. But we have got a couple in there. These type of clips you'll probably use a lot if you're on a boat. Now these are piggybacks, so if you've got something that's already got a cable going to it, you can piggyback these on and add another crimp to it. And they're quite good. You can then just cover those up with a bit of heat shrink. So those are all of that type, which are all crimpable. These ones here, you can crimp them, but what these ones do is, if you put a small flame or a heat gun over them, they've got heat shrink already built onto the crimp, and there's a soft solder core in there. So when you use these, you can either crimp them, or you can crimp and solder, or just solder. So we've got two different sizes of those. We've got the pink or red, and we've got the blue. They're quite good. So those are a couple of other bits in here. If you're putting new cables in, number and letter up your cables so that you know what is what, and of course draw yourself a circuit diagram. There's a few other little bits and pieces in there. I think these are RF bits and pieces for aerials, etc. Yeah, so there we go. That's our crimps and ferrules electrical stuff. Let's move on to the next one. So here we go, number 7 already, and that is tie wraps. You can't have enough tie wraps. Just some of the ones that we carry on the boat here, and we top them up on a regular basis as we use them. So we go from these really big heavy duty ones for tying people's wrists together, oh sorry, I said that out loud, to these tiny little ones, and we use quite a few of these for everything from holding cables in place to tying ropes and things. The only thing is that they are a single use, but actually, I don't know if you know this, most tie wraps are not single use. Like this one here, if you look down inside there, you can poke a little flat tool in there and it will open them up and you can use them again. So top tip for you, if you're using tie wraps, most of them, even these little tiny ones, yeah, they've got a little flat spot inside. I'll show you on a big one. There we are. Let me see that. There's a little flat spot there just inside, and what you can do, that run a flat screwdriver or a special tool into that flat, and you can then open up your tie wrap and use it again, or retighten it. So here's the next one, and it's tapes. You can never have enough tapes on board. Let's show you what we've got here. I'll leave this one till last, out of shot there. So PTFE, Teflon tape. There's two different thicknesses there. That's 0.1mm, and I think that is 0.3mm. PTFE tape, it's heat resistant, it helps with the joints. Don't use PTFE on gas. Never ever use PTFE on gas. Gas fittings, that is. Electrical tape. So there's obviously a port and starboard tape. Some white tape, electrical tape, and some grey if you're taping something on stainless. And of course, for you Americans, there's a hot and a neutral tape as well. There we go. So we don't tend to use tape on electrical joints. We tend to use heat shrink, but it does come in really handy sometimes if there's areas that you just can't get to either with a heat shrink or a tie wrap. Then tape, and the good quality tape, is really useful. So there's one other type of tape in here, and that's this. What's that for? Well, I'm going to bring this in because this is actually really handy. This is one of these little printers. I can't remember the last thing we were printing. Something that says T power. 12 volt power. So you literally have numbers and letters there, and you can change the size. This works on either a 7.5 volt input there, or batteries, which are in it at the moment. You push the button and it prints, and Print. There we go. Come on. It's a bit slow. But there we are. Printed out. 12 volt power. And of course for things like our boxes, these, it's ideal because when that box goes away in its hole, let's put it in its hole, up there, you know where everything is. And the other thing that's handy, I'll just move this rubbish out of the way, is we have our international call sign and our MMSI number and the name of the boat here with a big tape from a big gun that we've got, and we've got one of those up at the helm as well, and it helps you when you're spelling out your name of your boat and you're giving your ID to the Coast Guard, etc., Harbour Master, whoever. You can phonetically spell it out a lot easier if you've got it right in front of you next to the radio. So there you go, tapes. Screwdrivers. Good quality screwdrivers with hardened ends, and preferably those with the shank which is insulated as well. And if you have to cut back the insulation to work on a screw that's buried in a machine, like I have had to do here, then cover it up with 2 layers of heat shrink afterwards. Good quality, with a hole in the end. Hole in the end, really handy if you're working up the mast or on the bow of the boat. You can tether those off and they won't go anywhere. Now the other thing, let's open these up, that we have is we have one of these little sets. There's a needle file in there and a spare tool. These are great as well. You can put several ends in the end of this one that unscrews and put them in your pocket if you're going to do a job up a mast. It's got a little tie clip on the end there. You can put a piece of string on, but they also give you Torx head, flats, Phillips, Allen heads, etc., etc. They're really useful for little tiny jobs. So if you've got a decent set of screwdrivers and a set of these, you've got almost everything you need, I would imagine, screwdriver wise. Of course, what you do need is you need Grandad's big screwdriver. This is really handy if you've got something that just won't budge. A big old screwdriver, nice grippy wooden handle, and it has a 13mm nut built into the shaft there. You can get some real purchasing power on that. We've got one of those in a flathead and one in number 3 Phillips, I think. This is a laser thermometer, basically. You point it at something, pull the trigger, and it tells you what the temperature is, either in degrees Celsius, which is what this one is in at the moment, or in Fahrenheit. It has a little lamp that lights up the display. These are great for seeing if you have a fault. Of course, you just put the laser on the wire where you suspect you might have a fault, and it will tell you whether that joint or cable is heating up. And also good for on the engine if you're looking for things not heating up or heating up. These things are absolutely great, and they are a godsend on a boat, especially if you're working on stuff which you think is faulty for fault finding. Really good piece of kit, and they're cheap as chips, battery powered. Obviously don't point the laser at people, but yeah, great, a must have. Electrical pliers, these are a good set. Electrical side cutters, these are a good set. Make sure that the jaws actually touch together when you use them. These are probably 20 years old or so. These are Lucas Elliott electrician's pliers. Lots and lots of uses. They've got cutters, jaws, a flat jaw, and the tip of the jaw is just flattened off. and of course a set of side cutters as well, good quality side cutters. Tend to use these things a lot less nowadays. So the next one are these. Now these are a good quality set of crimping pliers. They have a ratchet action. Once you take them to that farthest point, you release and it will then release, but anything less than that, they stay where they are. They have interchangeable jaws, so this has got the coloured crimp jaw in, as you can see there, for red, blue and yellow crimps. They are slightly adjustable by this little adjusting screw here, but usually they're pretty well calibrated when they come out the packet, and they are great, absolutely great. Don't get those cheapy ones, you know, that you can buy that do 200 different jobs. Get a good set of crimpers, and these will do up to about an 8mm cable, I believe it is. Yeah, good ones. Well worth having on board. Save you a lot of time, and you won't end up doing all your crimps twice. Next item, a good set of strippers. Now I've always been a traditionalist and used traditional electrical strippers, you know, the two with the two fingers that come down and grab the cable, but I must admit last year I treated myself to a new set of these, because I'd used somebody's on board another boat and I was pretty impressed. Now years ago I tried a tool like this, which was a Chinese one with a plastic, and it looked like a kind of a toucan's head, and I wasn't that impressed, and I kept ending up with little bits of copper all over the floor. And yes, in the background they are still banging away at that mounting. Apparently they've been at it for 4 years. Anyway, this is a good set, this is a quality set, but they've also got a pretty decent wire cutter here, and a set of crimpers. Now these type of crimpers are different, you can see them there. These are for those round ferrules that we've got. Work really well, actually. I'm quite impressed. Or of course I can change the jaws on my set of ratcheting crimpers. So yeah, pretty good, nice sharp, I don't know if you can see it there, it's precision ground there. Let's just show you how these work. So you push your cable into there, and this little stop here measures off the length that you're going to strip. This is a piece of 3/4, but you literally push it in there and do that, and it pulls the cable off. And you'll notice that what it does is it grabs with the jaws on the outer braid, but it doesn't cut through the inner ones, which is really good. I'm quite impressed with that. Yeah, so this one will cut an end from 10 to 24mm, just by you setting this little gauge on. So I'll show you again how they work, like that. Yeah, really good. This is, as I say, this is quite an expensive pair, but they do work pretty well. Well, this has got to be the top, probably the top #1 electrical tool that's on the boat. You will use this so many times for so many different things. Let's have a quick look. So this is a Unit T is the make of this one. This is like a conventional multimeter. It's automatic, this one. Well, you have to be here, but it's automatic. Ha ha ha. Yeah, automatic, this one. First setting is for DC volts, AC volts, ohms. There's a diode testing facility there, which is what that little blue thing is there. And then there's the amps testing. This has a clamp meter on it for AC volts as well. Only 2 connections on this one, common. which is the black, and the other one, which is the red, does all the other functions. This one you can select whether it makes a bleep or not. You can have it stop at the maximum value by pushing the max, or you can have it hold when you want it to hold a value. This one has an auto off function, so when you leave it on, if it's on for more than 3 minutes and it's not being used, it bleeps a couple of times and then it shuts down, which is really handy. It means your batteries last a lot longer. Good tool. This one I believe was about 30 UK pounds. They do some other models with more functions. The DC amps is particularly useful. If you're going to get one of these, get the one that does DC amps as well as AC amps. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, I think it's the Unity UT21 or 22. I'll put a link in the description to the number it is, but it measures RMS voltage as well. So this is the top tool. This is the tool that you will use more times or more than any other tool on your boat, I guarantee you. Make sure you get a good one, and when you've got a good one, go and buy a cheapy Chinesey one for just a few pounds, and use that as your sacrificial one, the one that doesn't matter if it goes overboard or gets lost or what have you, and keep a decent one on board the boat that you use, that you know you can trust.